Ladies and gentlemen, today I will talk about one of the most notorious figures in modern organized crime and the empire he has built. El Mencho, the leader of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, or CJNG. This story is not only about a man, but also about the rise of one of the most powerful and violent criminal organizations in Mexico and beyond. Understanding his rise and the CJNG's growth gives us insight into global criminal networks, state fragility, and the challenges of combating organized crime in the 21st century. El Mencho, born Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes in 1966, grew up in the small town of Aguililla, in the western Mexican state of Michoacán. This region is known for its rugged terrain, remote villages, and limited economic opportunities. From an early age, Nemesio was exposed to the realities of poverty and social inequality. His family struggled to make ends meet, relying on small-scale farming and local labor for survival. This environment would shape his understanding of hardship, resilience, and the value of resourcefulness, qualities that later influenced his ability to navigate and manipulate criminal networks. As a child, Nemesio experienced the close-knit nature of rural communities, where loyalty, reputation, and personal relationships often dictated social and economic outcomes. Growing up in Aguililla meant that he witnessed the local drug trade on a small scale, from the cultivation of marijuana to trafficking routes controlled by local families. These early observations offered him an informal education in the mechanisms of the illicit economy and the social hierarchies that governed it. Even at a young age, he understood that power could be leveraged through both influence and intimidation. Family dynamics also played a crucial role in his early development. The Oseguera Cervantes household was large, and responsibilities were shared among children from a young age. Nemesio had to work in the fields, tending to crops and livestock, learning discipline, patience, and the importance of strategic thinking. This upbringing instilled in him a work ethic and a survival instinct that would later translate into his methods for building an organized criminal enterprise. Education was limited in the region, and like many children in Aguililla, Nemesio's formal schooling ended prematurely. The scarcity of educational resources, combined with the lure of quick financial gains through the local drug trade, created a pathway for him to enter criminal activities. It was not uncommon for young men in his community to leave school early and seek income from informal or illicit ventures, a pattern that Nemesio followed with increasing determination. In his teenage years, Nemesio moved away from Aguililla in search of work. He initially traveled to nearby cities and even crossed into the United States, taking on low-paying jobs in agriculture and construction. These experiences exposed him to urban life, migration patterns, and the opportunities available through both legal and illegal channels. They also provided him with a broader perspective on social mobility and the economic disparities that could be exploited, lessons that would later inform his strategic decisions as a cartel leader. During this period, Nemesio began forming connections with local criminal networks. He observed how small-time traffickers operated, how alliances were formed, and how disputes were resolved, sometimes violently. These early encounters allowed him to develop an understanding of risk, loyalty, and enforcement. His ability to analyze human behavior and identify opportunities for advancement became one of his defining traits, setting him apart from peers who remained at the margins of the drug trade. Cultural factors also influenced Nemesio's development. In Michoacán, notions of honor, family loyalty, and reputation were deeply ingrained. Young men were often judged by their courage, decisiveness, and ability to protect their families and communities. Nemesio absorbed these values and translated them into his criminal identity, blending traditional notions of authority with the ruthlessness required in the emerging world of organized crime. He learned that respect could be commanded through both action and perception, a principle he applied meticulously throughout his career. By the time Nemesio reached adulthood, the foundation of his future empire was already taking shape. The combination of economic hardship, limited formal education, exposure to local criminal networks, and a culturally reinforced sense of authority provided him with the tools to navigate a world of violence and opportunity. These early experiences were critical in shaping the man who would later be known as El Mencho, a name synonymous with one of the most powerful and feared criminal organizations in Mexico. After spending his formative years navigating the challenges of rural life in Michoacán and gaining exposure to small-scale trafficking networks, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, later known as El Mencho, began taking deliberate steps into organized crime. His initial involvement was not as a feared leader, but as a low-level operative, performing menial tasks and learning the rules of the illicit world. These early roles allowed him to observe firsthand how criminal enterprises were structured and how power was maintained through a combination of violence, loyalty, and strategic alliances. El Mencho's first assignments often involved transporting drugs, collecting payments, and serving as a lookout during shipments. While these tasks might have seemed insignificant, they were critical for building trust within the criminal hierarchy. Nemesio quickly demonstrated an ability to carry out assignments efficiently and discreetly, earning the attention of mid-level traffickers who recognized his intelligence, discipline, and adaptability. This early reputation helped him gain access to more influential circles in the local criminal economy. During this period, he also began learning about the broader scope of the drug trade beyond Michoacán. He traveled through neighboring states, observing how cartels operated in urban areas and along international smuggling routes. These experiences expanded his understanding of supply chains, the role of corruption in maintaining operations, and the importance of strategic territorial control. Unlike many of his peers, Nemesio displayed a keen analytical mind, studying patterns and identifying opportunities for growth rather than simply performing tasks assigned to him. The mid-1980s and 1990s were a period of significant turbulence in Mexico's criminal landscape. The fragmentation of older cartels created power vacuums, and emerging groups competed violently for control. Nemesio seized this opportunity to position himself as a reliable and competent operative. By aligning with certain factions while remaining adaptable to shifting alliances, he learned the delicate balance between loyalty and pragmatism, a skill that would later define his leadership style. Family connections also played a role in his deeper involvement. The Oseguera Cervantes family had ties to local trafficking networks, and through these links, Nemesio gained access to mentorship and resources. He observed the successes and failures of older traffickers, absorbing lessons about operational security, bribery, and the strategic use of intimidation. These observations shaped his approach to leadership and provided him with an informal blueprint for building and managing his own criminal organization in the future. El Mencho's entry into organized crime also coincided with increasing exposure to violence. He witnessed kidnappings, assassinations, and public displays of power, which were common in the cartel environment. Rather than being deterred, Nemesio internalized these lessons, understanding that fear could be a strategic tool in establishing authority. This exposure helped him develop a mindset that combined strategic calculation with ruthless enforcement, traits that would later become hallmarks of his criminal leadership. During his early years in the criminal world, Nemesio also developed an understanding of cross-border opportunities. He observed how drugs, weapons, and money flowed between Mexico and the United States, realizing the immense financial potential of international trafficking. These insights encouraged him to think beyond local operations, envisioning a larger, more integrated criminal enterprise that could leverage both domestic networks and global demand. By the end of this period, Nemesio had transformed from a small-time operative into a rising figure within the Mexican criminal underworld. His intelligence, adaptability, and willingness to embrace calculated risks set him apart from contemporaries. These early experiences laid the foundation for his eventual creation of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, demonstrating that his entry into organized crime was not just about opportunity, but about vision, strategy, and an unyielding drive for power, after years of navigating the dangerous and fragmented landscape of Mexico's criminal underworld. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, now widely known as El Mencho, took decisive steps to consolidate power and form his own organization. The early 2010s marked a turning point. The disintegration of the Milenio Cartel, previously one of the dominant trafficking networks in western Mexico, created a power vacuum. El Mencho saw both an opportunity and a necessity to unify loyal operatives under a single banner capable of asserting control over territories and rival groups. The Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, officially emerged during this period as a new force in the Mexican criminal landscape. Unlike older cartels that relied heavily on hierarchical structures and rigid protocols, the CJNG incorporated a mix of military-style discipline and flexible, decentralized operations. This structure allowed the cartel to respond quickly to threats, maintain control over drug routes, and enforce loyalty among its members without being overly centralized, a key factor in its rapid rise. El Mencho's strategy in forming the CJNG relied heavily on absorbing remnants of former organizations. Loyal operatives from the Milenio Cartel and smaller regional groups were recruited, bringing with them experience, local knowledge, and established connections. This merger not only expanded CJNG's operational capacity, but also sent a clear message to rivals. El Mencho was a leader capable of uniting fractured factions into a single, formidable force. A critical element in the formation of the CJNG was territorial control. El Mencho focused on strategically important regions in western Mexico, particularly in Jalisco, Michoacán, and Veracruz, areas historically linked to drug cultivation and trafficking. By securing these zones, the CJNG could control supply chains, collection points, and smuggling routes, establishing itself as a serious competitor to older, more established cartels such as the Sinaloa Cartel. El Mencho also emphasized loyalty and discipline among his operatives. Recruitment was selective, focusing on individuals who demonstrated reliability, fearlessness, and strategic thinking. He fostered a culture where obedience was rewarded, disloyalty was severely punished, and operational efficiency was paramount. This approach allowed the CJNG to function like a cohesive organization rather than a loose network, giving it a significant advantage over rival groups that struggled with internal conflicts. From the outset, violence was a central tool for the CJNG. Public displays of force, including targeted killings of rival leaders, shootouts, and intimidation tactics, established the cartel's reputation as ruthless and capable. These actions were not only about removing opposition, but also about sending a clear message to communities, law enforcement, and rival groups. The CJNG was a dominant power that demanded respect. The cartel's formation also coincided with El Mencho's adoption of modern criminal strategies. The CJNG incorporated encrypted communications, sophisticated logistics, and innovative trafficking methods, such as clandestine tunnels and multi-layered transport networks. These practices allowed the cartel to scale rapidly, while minimizing exposure to law enforcement and rival attacks, setting a precedent for a new generation of organized crime in Mexico. By the mid-2010s, the CJNG had evolved from a newly formed cartel into one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico. Under El Mencho's leadership, it controlled key territories, maintained an efficient operational structure, and projected power through strategic violence. The formation of the CJNG was not merely the creation of a criminal group. It represented the rise of a new model of organized crime, one that combined vision, strategic alliances, operational discipline, and ruthless enforcement. Following the formation of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, El Mencho wasted no time in consolidating his influence and extending the cartel's reach across Mexico. The organization leveraged both strategic alliances and aggressive tactics to quickly gain control over key territories. Unlike some older cartels that expanded gradually, the CJNG pursued a bold approach, aiming to dominate major trafficking corridors and urban centers, ensuring that its operations were both visible and formidable. One of the primary strategies for rapid expansion was targeting regions with weak law enforcement presence. Mencho identified states where government oversight was limited or compromised by corruption. By asserting control in these areas, the CJNG could operate with minimal interference while recruiting local operatives and consolidating power. This approach allowed the cartel to grow quickly without engaging in prolonged conflicts that could destabilize its operations. Mencho also understood the importance of controlling transportation routes. Key highways, ports, and border crossings became focal points for CJNG operations. By establishing checkpoints, surveillance networks, and loyal enforcement teams along these routes, the cartel ensured the smooth movement of narcotics, weapons, and personnel. This logistical control not only increased profits, but also enhanced the cartel's strategic leverage over rivals and law enforcement. Aggressive confrontations with rival groups were another factor in the CJNG's expansion. The cartel did not hesitate to challenge established organizations, such as the Sinaloa Cartel or remnants of the Milenio Cartel. High-profile attacks, targeted assassinations, and displays of force allowed the CJNG to intimidate competitors, forcing some to retreat, merge, or accept subordinate roles. Mencho's willingness to use extreme violence as a tool of expansion demonstrated both his ruthlessness and his understanding of power dynamics. Geographic diversification was central to the cartel's strategy. While initially concentrated in Jalisco and Michoacán, the CJNG extended operations into Veracruz, Colima, Nayarit, and Guanajuato. These regions were strategically chosen for their access to drug production zones, major highways, and proximity to the United States. By controlling multiple states simultaneously, the cartel could expand its influence while creating a complex network that was difficult for authorities or rivals to dismantle. Recruitment and integration of local groups accelerated expansion. Mencho absorbed smaller gangs and independent traffickers, offering them protection, resources, and a stake in the cartel's operations. This strategy not only increased manpower but also incorporated local knowledge, allowing the CJNG to navigate communities, smuggling routes, and rival territories more effectively. The cartel's growth was therefore both territorial and organizational, strengthening its dominance on multiple levels. Technology and operational innovation supported the rapid expansion. The CJNG employed encrypted communications, surveillance systems, and tactical planning reminiscent of military operations. These capabilities allowed them to coordinate activities across multiple states, respond quickly to threats, and maintain operational security despite aggressive law enforcement efforts. This modern approach set the CJNG apart from older, more traditional cartels. By the mid-2010s, the CJNG had transformed from a newly formed cartel into one of the most powerful and feared organizations in Mexico. Its rapid expansion under Mencho's leadership was marked by strategic territorial control, ruthless enforcement, innovative tactics, and a flexible organizational structure. This period demonstrated not only the cartel's ambition but also Mencho's ability to execute a vision with precision, establishing the CJNG as a dominant force in the country's criminal landscape. Under Mencho's leadership, the CJNG did not limit itself to drug trafficking alone. From its inception, the cartel pursued a strategy of diversification, engaging in multiple illicit activities to maximize revenue, reduce dependency on any single source, and solidify its influence. This diversification allowed the organization to weather disruptions, law enforcement pressure, and rival attacks, creating a resilient and highly profitable criminal enterprise. Drug trafficking remained the cartel's primary revenue stream. The CJNG specialized in methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl, cultivating both domestic production and international smuggling routes. Unlike smaller cartels that focus on a single substance or region, the CJNG maintained a multi-drug portfolio, allowing it to respond to market demand, exploit higher profit substances, and penetrate global drug markets, including the United States, Europe, and Asia. Beyond narcotics, the CJNG engaged in extortion, targeting businesses, local entrepreneurs, and wealthy individuals in areas under their control. By demanding regular payments in exchange for protection, the cartel generated significant income while enforcing social control. Extortion also served a psychological function, instilling fear and reinforcing the cartel's dominance in both urban and rural communities. Kidnapping became another profitable and strategic activity. The CJNG employed kidnappings for ransom, intimidation, and recruitment. High-profile abductions not only brought in money, but also reinforced the cartel's reputation for ruthlessness. Victims' families often paid large sums, which were then funneled back into the organization's operations, while those who resisted became examples for others, creating a cycle of fear and compliance. Money laundering was a critical component of the CJNG's diversified strategy. Illicit proceeds were channeled through legitimate businesses, shell companies, and complex financial networks, often spanning multiple countries. This process not only legitimized the cartel's wealth, but also allowed for further investment in infrastructure, arms procurement, and bribery of officials, ensuring operational sustainability and reducing vulnerability to law enforcement. Arms trafficking and procurement were also integral to the cartel's criminal portfolio. The CJNG acquired high-powered weapons, including military-grade firearms, grenades, and tactical equipment, often sourcing them through corrupt officials or international smuggling routes. These weapons were used both defensively, to protect cartel assets, and offensively, to eliminate rivals, enforce loyalty, and expand territories. Mencho's leadership emphasized the integration of these diverse activities into a coordinated strategy. Unlike decentralized gangs that pursue opportunistic crimes, the CJNG's operations were systematically managed to ensure maximum efficiency, risk mitigation, and profit. Each illicit activity complemented the others, creating a network in which revenue from one operation could support another, strengthening the cartel's overall resilience. By diversifying its criminal activities, the CJNG transformed into a multi-dimensional criminal empire. Mencho understood that power in the modern underworld was not merely about territorial control or drug trafficking alone. It was about creating multiple income streams, strategic leverage, and social influence. This approach allowed the CJNG to rapidly expand its operations while maintaining dominance, cementing its position as one of Mexico's most formidable criminal organizations. From its earliest days, the CJNG under Mencho has been defined by its use of extreme violence. Violence was not just a reaction to threats or rival activity. It was a strategic tool, a way to assert dominance, instill fear, and maintain control over territories and people. Unlike some criminal groups that rely primarily on stealth or bribery, the CJNG has embraced a philosophy in which public displays of brutality are a core part of their identity and power projection. One of the cartel's signature tactics is highly visible acts of violence, often carried out in public spaces. Beheadings, mass executions, and shootings are sometimes staged deliberately to send a message not only to rivals, but also to local populations and law enforcement. These acts serve as warnings, reinforcing the idea that the CJNG will use extreme measures against anyone who opposes or challenges its authority. Fear becomes a currency as much as money, shaping the social and psychological landscape in areas under the cartel's influence. The CJNG also employs targeted killings to eliminate competition. Rival leaders, local gang members, and anyone threatening the cartel's operations are systematically removed. These actions are carefully planned to maximize impact and minimize risk to the organization. By controlling who lives and who dies, Mencho ensures that potential challengers are neutralized before they can organize or retaliate, consolidating power efficiently and ruthlessly. Violence is also used internally to enforce loyalty. Members of the CJNG understand that betrayal, disobedience, or incompetence can have deadly consequences. Punishments range from public executions to more subtle threats and intimidation, creating an environment in which obedience and loyalty are absolute. This culture of fear strengthens the organizational structure, ensuring that even ambitious or rebellious operatives think twice before acting against the leadership. Beyond immediate tactical benefits, extreme violence has a strategic psychological function. It sends a clear signal to law enforcement, rival groups, and the wider public that the CJNG is unassailable. The shock value of violent acts generates media attention, amplifying the cartel's reputation and projecting an image of invincibility. Mencho understands that perception is as important as reality, and violence becomes a tool to shape both. The CJNG's use of violence is not random. It is coordinated and often combined with propaganda. Videos and images of executions, attacks, or weapons displays are circulated through social media and other channels, reinforcing the cartel's message. These communications amplify the impact of violent acts, demonstrating both capability and ruthlessness. This combination of action and media strategy represents a modern approach to organized crime, where psychological dominance complements physical control. Mencho also integrates military tactics into the use of violence. The CJNG trains its members in combat techniques, ambush strategies, and coordinated assaults. These capabilities allow the cartel to carry out high-risk operations against rivals, government forces, or strategic targets with precision. The cartel's military-style approach distinguishes it from traditional street gangs and smaller criminal organizations, elevating its operational effectiveness and instilling fear among opponents. Through the calculated and strategic use of extreme violence, the CJNG has established itself as one of the most feared organizations in Mexico. Violence is both a weapon and a language, a method to negotiate power, enforce loyalty, and dominate territories. Under Mencho's leadership, this philosophy of brutality has been central to the cartel's expansion and influence, demonstrating that for the CJNG, fear is as much a tool of governance as control over drugs or money. Under Mencho's leadership, the CJNG has become a major player in the global drug trade, extending its reach far beyond Mexico's borders. While the cartel's early operations focused on domestic distribution, it quickly recognized the enormous profits available through international markets. The CJNG strategically targeted the United States, Europe, and parts of Asia, creating a transnational network capable of producing, transporting, and distributing large quantities of narcotics with remarkable efficiency. Methamphetamine production has been one of the cartel's most lucrative operations. CJNG-controlled laboratories, primarily in western Mexico, produce synthetic drugs on a massive scale. By controlling production at the source, the cartel can maintain consistent quality, meet growing demand, and maximize profits. Methamphetamine, in particular, has become a global commodity, allowing the CJNG to penetrate markets that were previously dominated by smaller, regional traffickers. Fentanyl and heroin have emerged as another key focus for the cartel. Fentanyl, a highly potent synthetic opioid, has been in high demand globally due to its potency and profitability. The CJNG's involvement in fentanyl trafficking demonstrates not only adaptability but also strategic vision, as they exploit emerging markets in North America and Europe while minimizing competition from other criminal groups. Heroin, historically produced in regions of Mexico controlled by cartels, continues to be a major revenue stream for the organization. Cocaine trafficking further expands the CJNG's global footprint. Unlike methamphetamine, cocaine is primarily sourced from South America, requiring coordination with international suppliers and complex smuggling routes. By establishing alliances with South American producers and using sophisticated logistics networks, the CJNG can transport cocaine to Mexico, the United States, and other international markets, increasing both revenue and influence. The cartel's smuggling methods are diverse and constantly evolving. The CJNG employs tunnels, hidden compartments in vehicles, maritime shipments, and even small aircraft to move drugs across borders. These methods reflect a high degree of planning and technical expertise, allowing the cartel to adapt to law enforcement tactics while maintaining the flow of narcotics. Innovation in smuggling is as much a part of El Mencho's strategy as the violence used to enforce territorial control. El Mencho has also expanded the CJNG's financial networks to support global trade. Money laundering operations, shell companies, and international banking channels are used to legitimize profits and reinvest in operations. These networks provide the cartel with the financial flexibility to sustain large-scale trafficking operations, pay operatives, bribe officials, and acquire weapons, ensuring that the global drug trade is both profitable and sustainable. The cartel's international reach has significant implications for law enforcement and public health. By controlling large quantities of narcotics in multiple markets, the CJNG contributes to widespread addiction, overdose deaths, and social instability in countries far from its base in Mexico. This global impact underscores the scale and sophistication of the organization, illustrating that El Mencho's influence extends well beyond local territories or even national borders. Through strategic planning, international alliances, and operational innovation, the CJNG under El Mencho has evolved into a transnational criminal network. Their involvement in the global drug trade demonstrates not only ambition and greed, but also the ability to adapt to changing markets, law enforcement pressure, and emerging opportunities. The cartel's global footprint solidifies its status as one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. One of the defining features of the CJNG under El Mencho's leadership is its remarkable operational innovation. Unlike older criminal organizations that relied primarily on brute force and traditional smuggling methods, the CJNG has embraced modern techniques to maximize efficiency, evade law enforcement, and maintain a competitive edge over rival cartels. This innovative approach has allowed the cartel to scale rapidly and operate with precision across multiple regions. Technology plays a critical role in the cartel's operations. The CJNG utilizes encrypted communication platforms, secure messaging apps, and advanced tracking systems to coordinate shipments, manage personnel, and maintain secrecy. These tools reduce the risk of interception by authorities and allow leaders to oversee operations remotely. El Mencho has emphasized the importance of staying ahead of law enforcement through constant adaptation and technological awareness. The cartel also incorporates military-style planning and logistics. Operations are meticulously coordinated, from drug production and transportation to security enforcement and territorial control. The CJNG trains its members in tactical maneuvers, ambush strategies, and rapid response protocols. This structured, almost paramilitary approach distinguishes it from less organized criminal groups and ensures that the cartel can maintain dominance even in hostile environments. Innovation extends to smuggling methods as well. The CJNG has deployed tunnels, hidden compartments in vehicles, maritime shipments, and even small aircraft to transport narcotics across borders. These methods demonstrate a willingness to invest in complex logistical solutions and to continuously experiment with new techniques to stay ahead of law enforcement and rival organizations. Financial innovation is another critical aspect. The CJNG has developed sophisticated money laundering networks using shell companies, real estate investments, and international banking channels. These strategies allow the cartel to convert illicit proceeds into legitimate assets, fund expansion, and protect its wealth from seizure. By integrating financial operations with trafficking and enforcement, the cartel creates a self-sustaining ecosystem that is both profitable and resilient. Organizational innovation is equally important. While the CJNG maintains a hierarchical structure, it is decentralized enough to allow independent cells to operate without constant oversight. This flexibility reduces vulnerability to arrests or leadership losses while enabling rapid deployment of resources across multiple territories. Each cell operates with autonomy, but remains aligned with the cartel's overarching strategic goals. The CJNG also innovates in psychological operations and propaganda. Videos, social media posts, and strategic leaks are used to project power, intimidate rivals, and shape public perception. By combining operational efficiency with psychological warfare, the cartel amplifies the impact of its actions, ensuring that both fear and respect are maximized among competitors, communities, and law enforcement. Through these innovations, technological, tactical, financial, organizational, and psychological, Mencho has transformed the CJNG into a modern, adaptive criminal enterprise. Operational innovation is not merely about efficiency. It is a core element of the cartel's strategy for survival and dominance. By continuously evolving and experimenting, the CJNG has maintained its edge in one of the most competitive and violent criminal landscapes in the world. A key factor in the CJNG's rapid rise and sustained power under Mencho has been its careful cultivation of strategic alliances. While the cartel is known for its violence and territorial dominance, Mencho understands that raw force alone cannot ensure long-term survival. By forming calculated partnerships with other criminal groups, local gangs, and even corrupt officials, the CJNG has been able to expand influence, share resources, and reduce conflicts that could threaten its operations. One of the most important aspects of these alliances is temporary collaboration with rival groups. Mencho has demonstrated flexibility in working with certain cartels or factions when it serves mutual interests, such as coordinating drug shipments, securing smuggling routes, or targeting common enemies. These temporary alliances are pragmatic and transactional, emphasizing benefit over loyalty, which allows the CJNG to avoid prolonged conflicts that could drain resources. Local gangs and smaller criminal networks are also brought into the CJNG's orbit through alliances. These groups provide the cartel with valuable intelligence, territorial control, and manpower while benefiting from protection, funding, and access to larger-scale operations. By incorporating these groups, the CJNG effectively centralizes control while maintaining local knowledge and loyalty, ensuring that its expansion is both strategic and sustainable. Mencho has also leveraged alliances with corrupt officials at municipal, state, and sometimes federal levels. Bribery, coercion, or mutual benefit arrangements allow the CJNG to operate with reduced risk of interception or disruption. Law enforcement and political collaboration serve as force multipliers, enabling the cartel to expand its territory and influence without exposing itself unnecessarily to legal consequences. These alliances are often reinforced by shared criminal goals. For example, the CJNG has coordinated with other organizations to control certain drug production zones or trafficking corridors. Such arrangements reduce conflict over high-value territories and increase efficiency in the movement of narcotics. Mencho's ability to negotiate these agreements demonstrates a strategic mind capable of long-term planning and risk management. Even international connections play a role. The CJNG has formed relationships with suppliers, distributors, and even criminal networks abroad. These alliances facilitate access to precursor chemicals for methamphetamine and fentanyl, provide distribution channels in the United States and Europe, and ensure that financial operations are coordinated across borders. By thinking globally, Mencho has positioned the CJNG as a transnational player in organized crime. While alliances provide clear benefits, they are carefully managed to prevent betrayal. Mencho ensures that partners understand the consequences of disloyalty, often reinforcing agreements with both incentives and the implicit threat of violence. This balance of reward and fear allows the CJNG to maintain a network of collaborators while minimizing the risk of internal disruption or treachery. Through strategic alliances, Mencho has expanded the CJNG's operational reach, diversified its capabilities, and strengthened its resilience against rivals and law enforcement. Alliances are not just opportunistic, they are integral to the cartel's long-term strategy, allowing it to dominate territory, control markets, and maintain power in a competitive and volatile criminal landscape. One of the defining challenges in the rise of the CJNG under El Mencho has been its ongoing rivalry with the Sinaloa Cartel, one of Mexico's oldest and most powerful criminal organizations. This rivalry is not only a battle for territorial control, but also a strategic struggle for influence, resources, and dominance in the global drug trade. From its early days, the CJNG's ambition to expand into territories traditionally controlled by the Sinaloa Cartel created inevitable conflict. The rivalry is fueled by competition over key drug trafficking routes, particularly those leading to the United States. Both cartels seek control over highways, border crossings, and urban centers that serve as crucial distribution points for cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and other narcotics. Control of these routes directly translates into enormous profits, making the conflict high stakes and intensely violent. Territorial disputes have led to frequent and brutal confrontations. The CJNG and Sinaloa Cartel have engaged in ambushes, kidnappings, assassinations, and public shootouts. These violent encounters are often highly publicized, serving both as demonstrations of strength and as warnings to rivals. El Mencho's approach combines tactical planning with psychological warfare, using targeted violence to assert dominance and challenge the Sinaloa Cartel's long-established reputation. The rivalry also extends into strategic alliances with smaller groups. Both cartels seek to recruit or co-opt local gangs to support their operations. In contested areas, these alliances can tip the balance of power, enabling the CJNG to gain temporary advantages or strengthen defenses against Sinaloa attacks. El Mencho has shown skill in negotiating such alliances while ensuring loyalty through a combination of incentives and intimidation. Intelligence and counterintelligence are critical components of this rivalry. Both cartels deploy scouts, informants, and surveillance to anticipate rival movements. The CJNG's ability to gather accurate intelligence on Sinaloa operations has allowed El Mencho to plan preemptive strikes, secure key territories, and avoid costly miscalculations. This strategic sophistication reflects the modern, militarized approach that distinguishes the CJNG from many other criminal organizations. The conflict has significant implications for civilian populations. Communities caught in contested territories often experience extreme violence, forced displacement, and economic disruption. Public safety deteriorates as both cartels attempt to assert control, highlighting the human cost of this rivalry. El Mencho's willingness to pursue dominance at all costs underscores the ruthless efficiency with which the CJNG operates. Financial stakes are another key element of the rivalry. Both cartels compete for control of lucrative markets for narcotics, extortion, and money laundering. By expanding into Sinaloa-controlled areas, the CJNG gains access to new revenue streams, which are reinvested into operations, weapons, and territorial defense. The rivalry, therefore, is not only about power but also about securing resources critical to long-term sustainability. Ultimately, the CJNG's rivalry with the Sinaloa Cartel represents a central axis of modern Mexican organized crime. For El Mencho, defeating or at least challenging the Sinaloa Cartel is both a strategic necessity and a symbolic assertion of the CJNG's rise as a dominant force. This rivalry drives innovation, operational efficiency, and strategic planning, illustrating the high-stakes environment in which the CJNG has risen to prominence. A critical factor in the CJNG's rise under El Mencho has been its ability to manipulate political systems and exploit corruption. While violence and intimidation secure territorial control, the cartel's long-term stability depends on influencing local governments, law enforcement, and judicial institutions. Through bribery, coercion, and strategic relationships, the CJNG ensures operational freedom and protection from legal consequences, allowing its empire to grow with minimal interference. Local officials often serve as the cartel's first line of influence. In many towns and municipalities where the CJNG operates, politicians, police chiefs, and bureaucrats are either directly bribed or coerced into compliance. These officials provide intelligence on law enforcement operations, suppress rival activity, and sometimes actively support cartel operations. El Mencho's approach blends intimidation with strategic incentives, ensuring loyalty while minimizing the risk of exposure. The cartel also extends influence to state-level authorities, including law enforcement agencies and regional governments. By infiltrating these institutions, the CJNG can secure protection for trafficking routes, avoid arrests, and access sensitive information on rival operations or government investigations. This penetration of political systems demonstrates the cartel's sophisticated understanding of power beyond street-level control. Financial leverage is a key tool for corruption. The CJNG generates billions through drug trafficking, extortion, and other illicit activities. These funds are strategically distributed to gain political influence, from small payments to local police officers to significant bribes for higher-ranking officials. By controlling resources, the cartel can create dependencies and ensure cooperation from individuals who might otherwise challenge its operations. Judicial influence also plays a role. By bribing or intimidating judges and prosecutors, the CJNG can secure favorable outcomes for captured members, delay trials, or avoid prosecution altogether. This legal manipulation is a vital component of El Mencho's strategy, allowing the cartel to maintain operational continuity even under the scrutiny of national authorities. The influence extends to electoral politics as well. The CJNG may support candidates willing to cooperate or turn a blind eye to cartel activities. By shaping local political landscapes, the cartel ensures that sympathetic officials occupy positions of authority, further securing territorial dominance and operational stability. El Mencho's ability to navigate these political networks demonstrates his long-term vision and understanding of institutional power. Corruption also provides a strategic advantage over rivals. While competing cartels may rely primarily on violence to gain territory, the CJNG's combination of coercion and political manipulation allows it to expand with fewer direct confrontations. Allies within government institutions can supply intelligence, facilitate operations, and even undermine rival organizations, giving the CJNG a unique operational edge. Through corruption and political influence, El Mencho has effectively created a shield around the CJNG's operations. By intertwining criminal activities with institutional manipulation, the cartel secures both protection and strategic advantage. This integration of organized crime and political influence is a hallmark of the CJNG's sophistication, demonstrating that its power is not solely derived from violence, but also from the careful exploitation of systemic weaknesses. A cornerstone of the CJNG's dominance under El Mencho is its extraordinary financial power. Unlike smaller criminal organizations, which may rely on a single revenue stream, the CJNG has cultivated multiple sources of income, ranging from drug trafficking to extortion, kidnapping, and money laundering. This diversified revenue base provides the cartel with the resources to expand, invest in operations, and maintain resilience against law enforcement pressure. Drug trafficking remains the primary source of income, particularly the production and distribution of methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin. Control over these high-demand narcotics generates billions annually, allowing the CJNG to fund operations across multiple states in Mexico and extend influence into international markets. El Mencho's strategic focus on high-profit drugs has been central to consolidating financial dominance. Beyond narcotics, extortion and kidnapping contribute significantly to the cartel's revenue. Businesses, wealthy individuals, and communities in CJNG-controlled territories are compelled to pay for protection, generating steady income while reinforcing the cartel's authority. Kidnapping operations further enhance cash flow through ransoms, often targeting high-profile individuals to secure large sums quickly. These activities supplement drug profits and provide the cartel with additional financial leverage. Money laundering is a critical aspect of CJNG's financial power. Illicit earnings are channeled through real estate, shell companies, legitimate businesses, and international banking networks. This process not only legitimizes profits, but also allows the cartel to reinvest in operations, bribe officials, and expand infrastructure. The sophistication of these networks demonstrates the cartel's capacity for strategic financial planning. Arms procurement and operational logistics are also financed through the cartel's wealth. Mencho invests heavily in weapons, vehicles, surveillance equipment, and training for his operatives. By allocating substantial resources to operational capabilities, the CJNG ensures that financial power translates into tangible dominance on the ground, reinforcing both expansion and territorial control. The CJNG's financial strength also enables strategic alliances and territorial acquisitions. By providing funding, resources, or support to allied groups, the cartel can extend influence without direct confrontation. Wealth becomes a tool of diplomacy, coercion, and strategic negotiation, allowing Mencho to achieve objectives that might be impossible through force alone. Financial resilience also protects the cartel from law enforcement actions. With significant resources at hand, the CJNG can withstand raids, arrests, and seizures while continuing operations uninterrupted. Funds are allocated to legal defense, corruption of officials, and relocation of key personnel or production facilities, ensuring that disruptions are temporary rather than debilitating. Ultimately, the CJNG's financial power is a pillar of its enduring strength. Mencho's ability to generate, manage, and strategically deploy vast resources underpins every aspect of the cartel's operations, from territorial expansion and recruitment to innovation and violence. This economic dominance reinforces the CJNG's position as one of the most formidable criminal organizations in the world. One of the reasons Mencho has remained at the helm of the CJNG despite intense law enforcement pressure is his meticulous attention to personal security. Unlike many criminal leaders who fall victim to rival attacks or capture, Mencho has developed an extensive, multi-layered system of protection designed to shield him from threats both inside and outside the cartel. His security measures are as strategic and disciplined as his operational planning. Physical protection is the most visible aspect of Mencho's security. He surrounds himself with highly trained bodyguards, often former military personnel, who are loyal and rigorously vetted. These operatives are strategically deployed to guard residences, production sites, and transportation routes. Their training in tactical combat, firearms, and counter-surveillance ensures that any attempt to target Mencho is met with immediate and coordinated defense. Mencho's mobility is another critical component of his security strategy. He rarely stays in one location for extended periods, frequently relocating between safe houses, rural compounds, and remote areas. These movements are carefully planned and executed with operational precision, minimizing the likelihood of detection by law enforcement or rival organizations. The use of multiple residences and hidden locations creates uncertainty for those attempting to track him. Communication security is equally sophisticated. Mencho relies on encrypted messaging platforms, secure phones, and intermediaries to relay instructions and receive intelligence. Direct contact is limited to trusted inner-circle operatives, reducing the risk of interception or betrayal. This digital security allows him to manage the CJNG's extensive operations without exposing himself to unnecessary risk. Logistical planning reinforces personal security. Transportation is carefully managed, often involving decoys, armored vehicles, and unconventional routes to avoid predictable patterns. These tactics make it difficult for authorities or rival groups to plan ambushes or surveillance operations, enhancing Mencho's safety while maintaining operational control over his organization. Intelligence gathering is a cornerstone of his security approach. Mencho ensures that his network monitors both law enforcement activity and rival cartel movements. Informants, surveillance systems, and human intelligence within communities provide real-time updates, allowing him to preempt threats and adjust plans accordingly. Knowledge of the environment is treated as essential protection. Secrecy and anonymity play a significant role in reducing exposure. Mencho rarely appears in public, and his identity and appearance are carefully guarded. Even within the CJNG, only a small circle of trusted associates has direct access to him. This limited exposure ensures that operational knowledge of his whereabouts remains highly restricted, making targeting nearly impossible. Through this combination of physical, logistical, digital, and intelligence-based security measures, Mencho has remained one of the most elusive criminal leaders in the world. His personal security strategy is not reactive. It is proactive, layered, and continuously evolving, reflecting a deep understanding of risk, strategy, and the lethal environment in which he operates. This vigilance has allowed him to maintain control of the CJNG despite constant threats from law enforcement and rival organizations. The rise of the CJNG under Mencho has not gone unnoticed by authorities around the world. Due to the cartel's involvement in drug trafficking, money laundering, and violent crimes with cross-border implications, both Mexican and international law enforcement agencies have made capturing Mencho a top priority. His notoriety has made him one of the most wanted criminals in modern organized crime, drawing attention from agencies such as the DEA, Interpol, and Mexican federal authorities. The United States Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, has played a leading role in targeting Mencho and the CJNG. With extensive intelligence operations, the DEA monitors the cartel's trafficking routes, financial networks, and international collaborations. The agency has issued multi-million-dollar rewards for information leading to his capture, reflecting both the scale of his operations and the perceived threat he poses to public safety in the United States and beyond. Interpol has also issued notices for Mencho, highlighting the global reach of the CJNG. International cooperation between law enforcement agencies has been crucial in tracking the movement of narcotics, money, and personnel across borders. By sharing intelligence, coordinating operations, and pressuring local authorities, these agencies aim to disrupt the cartel's international operations and ultimately apprehend its leader. Mexican authorities have launched numerous operations targeting the CJNG's infrastructure, safe houses, and high-ranking members. Specialized units are deployed to dismantle trafficking networks, seize weapons, and arrest operatives. However, Mencho's sophisticated personal security and the cartel's operational flexibility have allowed him to evade capture repeatedly, making him a symbol of both criminal audacity and law enforcement challenges in Mexico. The financial networks of the CJNG have also drawn international attention. By tracking money laundering operations, authorities attempt to identify and freeze assets, disrupt funding, and weaken the cartel's operational capabilities. Banks, real estate holdings, and shell companies are scrutinized as part of coordinated efforts to diminish the cartel's financial power and increase pressure on Mencho indirectly. Mencho's reputation for extreme violence adds urgency to law enforcement efforts. His willingness to target rivals, officials, and civilians alike makes him a high-risk figure whose capture is considered critical for both national security and public safety. Agencies are therefore committed to monitoring and anticipating his movements, often employing advanced surveillance technology and informant networks to stay ahead of the CJNG's operational maneuvers. International law enforcement attention has also fueled intelligence sharing agreements and joint operations between countries affected by the CJNG's narcotics distribution. From North America to Europe, authorities coordinate strategies to intercept shipments, apprehend traffickers, and dismantle logistical networks. This international focus highlights the CJNG's global influence and the challenges posed by transnational criminal enterprises. Despite this intense scrutiny, El Mencho has remained elusive, demonstrating both the effectiveness of his security measures and the difficulty of capturing leaders of modern cartels. His ability to evade international law enforcement underscores the sophistication of the CJNG's operations and reinforces his reputation as one of the most dangerous and strategically adept figures in organized crime today. El Mencho and the CJNG have become subjects of intense media coverage, both in Mexico and internationally. News outlets frequently report on violent confrontations, high-profile killings, and law enforcement operations involving the cartel, painting a picture of a ruthless organization that operates with near impunity. This media attention has shaped public perception, portraying El Mencho as one of the most feared and enigmatic figures in the world of organized crime. The CJNG's notoriety is amplified by its strategic use of media and social networks. Videos, images, and messages are sometimes disseminated to intimidate rivals, influence communities, or demonstrate the cartel's power. This deliberate manipulation of public perception enhances the cartel's reputation, projecting an image of omnipresence and control that goes beyond its physical territory. El Mencho understands that perception can be as powerful as force in maintaining influence. Public perception in Mexico is shaped not only by the CJNG's violence, but also by its interactions with communities. In some areas, the cartel provides financial support or protection to local populations, creating a complex relationship with civilians. While fear dominates, certain communities may view the cartel as a source of order or economic opportunity, reflecting the nuanced and sometimes contradictory ways the CJNG is perceived. Internationally, media coverage often emphasizes El Mencho's elusiveness and the scale of the CJNG's operations. Documentaries, news specials, and investigative reports highlight the cartel's involvement in global drug trafficking, money laundering, and extreme violence. This coverage increases pressure on law enforcement while simultaneously cementing El Mencho's image as a formidable and untouchable figure. The media also plays a role in shaping policy and law enforcement priorities. Public attention to the CJNG's activities drives government responses, funding for anti-cartel operations, and international collaboration. By dominating headlines, the cartel indirectly influences the allocation of resources and the strategies employed against it, demonstrating the power of perception in criminal strategy. Social media has become a modern battlefield for reputation management. The CJNG, like other criminal organizations, monitors online discourse, spreads propaganda, and sometimes responds to threats or challenges via digital channels. These platforms amplify the cartel's reach and allow El Mencho to influence narratives without direct exposure, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of communication as a strategic tool. The mystique surrounding El Mencho contributes to his power. Public fascination with his persona, part legend, part reality, creates an aura of invincibility. Stories of his escapes, strategic brilliance, and violent enforcement reinforce the perception that the CJNG is not only powerful but also led by an extraordinary figure capable of outmaneuvering rivals and authorities alike. Ultimately, media and public perception are intertwined with the CJNG's strategy for dominance. By cultivating fear, leveraging propaganda, and remaining elusive, El Mencho ensures that his reputation precedes him. This perception strengthens loyalty among members, intimidates rivals, and complicates law enforcement efforts, making El Mencho and the CJNG not just a criminal organization, but a symbol of power in Mexico's violent underworld. Despite the CJNG's vast power under El Mencho, the organization faces numerous challenges and threats that could undermine its dominance. Rival cartels, law enforcement operations, political instability, and internal dissent all pose significant risks to the cartel's stability. Understanding these pressures is essential to comprehending the precarious nature of life at the top of Mexico's criminal underworld. Rival cartels remain a constant threat. Organizations such as the Sinaloa Cartel, remnants of the Milenio Cartel, and regional gangs continue to contest territories, trafficking routes, and influence. These conflicts often erupt into violent confrontations, forcing the CJNG to allocate resources to both defense and retaliation. The constant threat of armed conflict requires El Mencho to remain vigilant and strategically proactive. Law enforcement and military operations in Mexico are persistent challenges. Federal authorities, supported by international partners, actively target CJNG infrastructure, personnel, and financial networks. Raids, arrests, and intelligence-gathering operations disrupt operations and force the cartel to adapt quickly. While El Mencho has evaded capture, these operations increase operational risk and necessitate constant planning to avoid exposure. Political instability and shifts in government policy can also affect the CJNG. Anti-cartel initiatives, changes in law enforcement leadership, or shifts in international cooperation can alter the operational environment. El Mencho must anticipate and adapt to these changes, using both bribery and strategic alliances to mitigate risks posed by political fluctuations. Internal dissent presents another serious threat. The CJNG is composed of thousands of operatives with varying loyalties and ambitions. Maintaining cohesion requires careful management of personal rivalries, grievances, and ambitions. Disloyalty or betrayal can result in operational failures or intelligence leaks, exposing the cartel to attacks from rivals or authorities. El Mencho enforces strict discipline and a culture of fear to reduce such risks. Supply chain disruptions also pose challenges. The CJNG depends on access to precursor chemicals, narcotics production sites, and distribution networks. Interruption in any part of this chain, whether due to law enforcement action, rival interference, or logistical failure, can reduce profitability and operational effectiveness. Strategic foresight and redundancy are necessary to maintain the flow of goods. Public backlash and community resistance represent additional risks. While fear often maintains compliance, local populations may occasionally resist or cooperate with authorities. Social unrest, community reporting, or anti-cartel movements can compromise CJNG operations, forcing El Mencho to weigh the benefits of intimidation against potential backlash. Finally, the global focus on the CJNG increases external pressure. International agencies monitor drug flows, money laundering, and violent incidents linked to the cartel. This scrutiny complicates El Mencho's global operations, requiring constant adaptation to evade detection and continue trafficking. Challenges and threats are ever present, yet they also reinforce the cartel's reliance on innovation, discipline, and strategic foresight under El Mencho's leadership. A critical concern for the CJNG under El Mencho is the question of succession and the continuity of leadership. As the cartel grows in size, influence, and complexity, ensuring a stable transition of power becomes essential. El Mencho has demonstrated a deep understanding that his personal security and longevity are finite, and that the organization must survive beyond his direct control to maintain dominance. El Mencho's leadership style combines central authority with strategic delegation. While he retains ultimate decision-making power, he empowers trusted lieutenants to manage operational sectors, such as production, logistics, security, and territorial enforcement. This hierarchical delegation allows the cartel to function effectively, while preparing key members for potential future leadership roles. Succession planning also involves vetting and grooming potential leaders. El Mencho carefully evaluates loyalty, competence, strategic thinking, and operational success before elevating individuals to positions of authority. Those who demonstrate a balance of ambition and obedience are considered viable candidates to assume leadership responsibilities in the event of his capture or death. Family connections play a significant role in succession strategy. Members of El Mencho's family are reportedly involved in key aspects of the CJNG's operations. By placing trusted relatives in high-ranking positions, he strengthens both loyalty and continuity. This family-based approach mirrors practices in other criminal organizations, where blood ties help secure leadership succession and reduce the risk of internal power struggles. El Mencho also anticipates external challenges to leadership. Rival cartels and ambitious operatives may attempt to exploit any perceived weakness during a transition. To mitigate this, he fosters loyalty through a combination of incentives, fear, and strategic communication. Maintaining a perception of unassailable authority, even among subordinates, is critical to preventing destabilization. Operational knowledge is systematically transferred to successors. El Mencho ensures that potential leaders understand logistics, financial networks, security protocols, and territorial management. This continuity planning allows the cartel to maintain efficiency and resilience even in the absence of its founder, demonstrating a level of foresight rare in criminal organizations. Succession planning also extends to crisis management. El Mencho prepares for scenarios involving arrests, law enforcement raids, or unexpected deaths of key operatives. Contingency protocols, alternative leadership structures, and emergency communication channels are all part of ensuring that the CJNG can survive and adapt to sudden disruptions without collapsing. Ultimately, El Mencho's approach to succession and leadership highlights his strategic sophistication. By balancing central authority with delegation, grooming loyal successors, leveraging family ties, and planning for contingencies, he increases the likelihood that the CJNG will remain a dominant force in Mexico's criminal landscape long after his tenure. Leadership continuity is not merely a concern. It is an integral part of the cartel's long-term survival strategy. The rise and operations of the CJNG under El Mencho have had profound effects on communities throughout Mexico. While the cartel generates fear and violence, it also influences the social, economic, and psychological landscape of the areas it controls. Understanding the community impact reveals the broader consequences of organized crime beyond trafficking and violence. Fear is one of the most immediate and pervasive impacts. Public displays of violence, executions, and intimidation campaigns instill terror among civilians, shaping behavior and limiting resistance. In communities under CJNG influence, residents often comply with the cartel's demands out of self-preservation, creating an environment where the cartel exercises de facto governance through fear rather than formal authority. Economic effects are multifaceted. On one hand, extortion, taxation of businesses, and disruption of local commerce impose financial burdens on communities. Entrepreneurs may struggle to maintain operations under constant threats, leading to closures or migration. On the other hand, the CJNG sometimes injects resources into local economies through payments, protection, or employment opportunities for locals, creating a complex relationship where fear and dependence coexist. Social dynamics are also deeply affected. Families live with the constant stress of potential violence, and community cohesion is often disrupted as fear and mistrust spread. Children and youth are particularly vulnerable, sometimes drawn into criminal activity due to economic necessity or coercion. The CJNG's presence thus shapes social norms, behaviors, and opportunities for generations. Education and public services can be indirectly impacted. Areas controlled by the CJNG may experience reduced government investment or interference in schools, healthcare, and infrastructure. Violence, intimidation, and corruption deter officials and NGOs from operating effectively, leaving communities isolated and underserved. This contributes to a cycle of marginalization and vulnerability that the cartel can exploit. Public perception of authority is also altered. In some communities, law enforcement is seen as ineffective, corrupt, or complicit, while the CJNG exerts real influence over daily life. This distortion of power dynamics can erode trust in government institutions, leaving the cartel as the primary arbiter of rules, order, and justice, even if through coercion and fear. Psychologically, residents experience chronic stress, trauma, and anxiety. Witnessing or hearing about violent acts, kidnappings, or executions impacts mental health and community cohesion. Fear of retaliation prevents open discussion or reporting, allowing the CJNG to maintain control while perpetuating a climate of silence and intimidation. The CJNG's community impact is therefore complex, combining fear, economic pressure, social disruption, and psychological trauma. El Mencho's organization does not merely traffic drugs or commit crimes. It shapes the fabric of everyday life in the regions it controls. Understanding these impacts provides insight into the broader societal consequences of organized crime and the enduring challenge of dismantling such powerful cartels. The future of the CJNG under El Mencho is a topic of intense speculation among law enforcement, analysts, and the public. Despite its current power and sophistication, the cartel faces both internal and external pressures that could shape its trajectory in the coming years. Understanding these potential developments is essential for assessing the long-term stability and influence of the organization. One factor influencing the future is leadership continuity. El Mencho's advanced age and the constant risk of arrest mean that succession planning is crucial. If a smooth transition occurs, the CJNG is likely to maintain its operational efficiency and territorial control. Conversely, disputes over leadership could trigger internal fragmentation or power struggles, weakening the organization and opening opportunities for rivals. Territorial expansion and consolidation will also define the cartel's future. The CJNG has steadily expanded into regions previously dominated by other criminal organizations, but maintaining these areas requires ongoing enforcement, logistical management, and the suppression of dissent. Future growth depends on the cartel's ability to balance expansion with effective control, avoiding overextension that could create vulnerabilities. The global drug market presents both opportunities and risks. As demand for methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine evolves, the CJNG may adapt its production and distribution strategies to maximize profits. However, increased international scrutiny and law enforcement efforts could disrupt trafficking networks, making innovation and adaptability essential for sustaining revenue streams. Internal cohesion is another critical factor. The CJNG's decentralized operational structure allows flexibility, but also requires careful management of ambitious lieutenants and regional operatives. Maintaining loyalty, enforcing discipline, and preventing defections or betrayals will be vital for the cartel to continue functioning as a unified force in the face of pressure. External threats, including rival cartels, law enforcement, and political initiatives, will continue to challenge the CJNG. Shifts in Mexican policy, international cooperation, and anti-narcotic strategies could disrupt operations. The cartel's ability to anticipate and respond to these threats will shape its resilience and long-term survival. Technological and operational innovation will likely remain a defining characteristic. The CJNG has historically adapted to law enforcement tactics, developed new trafficking methods, and integrated advanced communication and security systems. Continued investment in innovation will be necessary to maintain a competitive edge over rivals and evade capture. Ultimately, the future of the CJNG is intertwined with El Mencho's legacy. The organization's ability to survive leadership transitions, adapt to market changes, navigate threats, and maintain internal cohesion will determine whether it remains a dominant force in organized crime or faces decline. While uncertainty persists, the cartel's current strength and strategic sophistication suggest that it will continue to exert significant influence in Mexico and beyond for the foreseeable future. The story of El Mencho and the CJNG offers profound lessons about the nature of modern organized crime, leadership, and power. Beyond the sensational violence and international reach, the cartel exemplifies how strategy, adaptability, and operational sophistication can allow a criminal organization to rise from obscurity to global influence. These lessons are relevant not only for understanding the CJNG, but for analyzing organized crime worldwide. One lesson is the importance of strategic leadership. El Mencho's ability to combine vision, operational control, and personal security has been central to the CJNG's success. His leadership demonstrates that dominance in the criminal world requires careful planning, delegation, and foresight, not just brute force or opportunism. Diversification of operations is another critical takeaway. By engaging in multiple illicit activities, drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, money laundering, and arms trafficking, El Mencho ensured that the CJNG's revenue streams were resilient. This multidimensional approach reduces vulnerability and maximizes opportunity, showing how modern criminal organizations think in complex, business-like terms. The CJNG also highlights the role of innovation. From technological communication tools to tactical military-style operations and advanced smuggling techniques, El Mencho fostered a culture of adaptability. Criminal organizations that evolve in response to law enforcement pressure and market dynamics are far more likely to succeed and endure. The strategic use of violence and intimidation is another lesson. El Mencho recognized that power is both physical and psychological. Fear can consolidate control, enforce loyalty, and shape public behavior, illustrating how violence can be leveraged as a tool of governance, not just retaliation. Alliances and political influence demonstrate the lesson that power extends beyond the street. El Mencho's ability to cultivate relationships with rival groups, local gangs, and corrupt officials underscores that strategic partnerships, both legal and illegal, are essential for sustaining operations and expanding influence. The CJNG also shows the critical importance of financial acumen. Money is both a tool and a shield. El Mencho's meticulous approach to laundering, reinvesting, and allocating funds for operations, protection, and influence illustrates that financial management is as vital to criminal success as tactical prowess. Finally, the story of El Mencho teaches that organizational resilience is key. By planning for succession, training operatives, decentralizing operations, and integrating intelligence and innovation, the CJNG has created a system capable of surviving both internal and external shocks. This resilience ensures continuity even in the face of law enforcement pressure, rival attacks, or leadership transitions. In sum, El Mencho's empire offers a comprehensive blueprint of how modern organized crime operates at the highest level. The lessons range from leadership and strategy to innovation, violence, finance, and resilience. While the CJNG's story is defined by brutality and illegality, it also provides a rare window into the organizational brilliance and strategic thinking that underpins one of the most powerful criminal enterprises in the world.